There she blows.
Dar she blows, dar she blows, dar she blows. Anyhow, yeah, it was a heck of a morning this morning. My wife had the tire blowout at 5 a.m. She calls me up and she's a little over a half an hour away. I had to zip out there and we spent a little over 5 hours, I think, waiting on tow trucks to come over a
But it
flat
also
tire.
gave you the inspiration for tonight's show.
Yeah, this is actually very, very true. So anyhow, hey there, hi there, ho there, out in spray wash land as everybody starts rolling in here. Tonight we're going to get back into a lot of the discussions about low pricing, and it's not necessarily just about the $99 guy. That's not going to be it per se, right? And I'm going to start off with a little story that kind of goes back to what happened this morning and that helps bring this to light, right? So it's the stupidity of low pricing. And so what happened to me this morning was 5 o'clock in the morning. My wife calls me, and she was on her way out to her nursing job, and she caught a flat tire. So the modern cars, hers being one of them, they don't have spare tires to them. They don't even have jacks in them or none of that. So anyhow, I zip over there to where she's at to, see if I could fix the tire, get her going on her way. Lo and behold, I can't. So we ended up calling Allstate Roadside Assistance, and they got us a tow truck. Took almost 2 hours for the tow truck to get there. The first tow truck arrives, and it's the wrong type of tow truck. It doesn't have a flatbed. It's just a regular, lift your truck, lift the front tires and go. Well, the problem is it's the back tire that's flat. He doesn't have the correct tools to lift the car, move the tires around. Long story short, they don't own a flatbed hauler type truck. Okay. So we wait another 2 hours for the next tow truck company to come, and they come with a flatbed. They load us up, and down the road they go. Okay, so the point to this is that with a lot of those types of companies, they have to have a low price model that works with these insurance companies. So these insurance companies, I saw the deal, were only willing to pay $150, okay, for the tow. And it's a tow that anybody else would have likely been about $250. Right. The point is, you can make money doing that, right? And you're doing it on, the turnover. You just got to keep doing it, hustling. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the first tow truck company, his tow truck wasn't in very good condition, and he couldn't afford to buy a flatbed, okay, because he's not charging enough money. The second tow truck company, which has the flatbed, guess what? The left tail light and turn signal are out on his truck. His truck's a piece of garbage. He tries to take off. It's smoking like crazy, all this kind of stuff. And the point to it, in my head that came to me was, it really boils down to they can't afford to fix the issues. We just had somebody posted online about something I told you about earlier, Ray, and I can't remember what it is for some reason, but it was all about pricing. And again, I think if you're the $99 guy, there's a lot of guys that make a lot of money at $99 that I'm not dissing them whatsoever, right? Right. But your business model, if it's centered on just a low pricing model, you have to be able to make enough money to deal with the other things on the side, like in their case, a blown engine. And Ray, you had a story about the same thing you were starting to tell me earlier. What was that one about? Do you remember?
Which one?
You said that you had something that went along that same line. Maybe you didn't, and that's just
I was just sitting here thinking on this. I mean, and it could be, that could have actually been a large towing company. And it's like, well, we're going to send our crappy truck out, for that. We're going to send our crappy truck out there to do the Allstate tow because we know we're only going to get $125, $150 for that. Oh, what I was going to tell you, I know what my old neighbor across the street, they used to own
that's the one,
carpet cleaning franchise. And it was a carpet cleaning franchise that 20 years ago was famous for large yellow trucks that would advertise, any room $29.95. They wound up giving up that franchise and doing their own private labeled carpet thing. And we talked a lot about business back in those days. I had just started spray wash and really learned a lot from this guy. Um, and he said, yeah, be real careful about going after those cheap customers, because by us having those vans that advertise $29.95 for any room on there, we got exactly that, the value conscious customer. And whenever you get the value conscious customer will leave you for a better value, or perceived in their mind for a cheaper price, or a better value as perceived in their mind. And typically speaking, price is that perception of value for them, even though it very well might not be, because I know there's plenty of $99 guys that are saying, yeah, it's $99 per side of the house, or $99 per service, or $99 per 1,000 square feet. And I've talked to guys in my market before. We've been in the store, messing around and talking. And I said, guys, literally, because they come in there and fuss about the cheap guys. And I've told them all, hey guys, I promise you, I could start a $99 guy kind of business in Tallahassee and kick all your butts, within 2 years out there. Because in a lot of ways, if you went with the $99 mindset, it's just literally the mindset of opening the door to the people and understanding who you're dealing with. Because if you're making that value proposition, you need to also understand that value proposition. $99 doesn't include the spot free windows. You know what? That's an extra
$99
or whatever the price of the. Actually, hey, the power washing is only $99, but to make your windows where you can actually see out of them, that's going to be $300 extra dollars out there. I mean, so there's so much to do with that. Oh, by the way, that's not going to include your driveway. That's not going to include the walkway. That's not going to, include,
this reminds me of there's a pool company, and the pool company advertises very, very heavily. I haven't seen them in many, many years, but they used to advertise very, very heavily, and they would advertise, I think it was $499, right? And $499, pool in the back of your yard, all this kind of stuff. And it was a really amazing deal. Like, I mean, big pool, all that, $499. And you're like, I mean, it makes the phone rings. I guarantee it, because it had me going, man, I don't know what the catch is, but for $499, that's worth taking a look. The whole gist of it is to get a salesman in your house to sell you on a $15,000 pool.
Right.
So you go from $499 to $15,000. And they don't have to close very many deals, right? And then you find out the $499 deal was you have to go to their location and pick it up, and they were in Atlanta or whatever, wherever. You had to do this, and that. By the time you got done with everything, it was no way to
dig the hole.
The heck with all that kind of stuff, right?
You had to pull the permits.
All the stuff that was involved with it, and it just didn't make it worthwhile to even, try to do kind of a thing. So I think that you even had to load it yourself or something stupid like that. I mean, how do you do that? You can't. So anyhow, so the value that's perceived, and here when we talk about the stupidity of low pricing, it's just that. If you're priced too low, you're not making a profit or enough of a profit, or you think you're making money. You and I have gone down this rabbit hole many, many times where, we talk to people about, I made $300 today. No, you didn't make $300 today. You made this. And if you go back to Gene O'Neill's comment there a moment ago about, if you want to hunt or fish and that kind of thing, right? Everything has its own mindset and its own position in where you want to be. And you can make a very good living. You can do a very good thing at $49, $79, $99, that $150 being the example from there. And just like you said, that might have been might have been a bigger company, and they just have a fleet that goes out and does all these little runarounds, and they don't spend money on those trucks and whatever. They don't care about how they
Well,
look.
why would you? Now, if you weren't calling on the Allstate deal, if Allstate wasn't calling it in, it was Doug Gore calling in, okay, we might be sending the bright, shiny pickup truck out.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to you that this morning when we were first talking about this idea, and it's weird how, I swear God just works in such mysterious ways. There's one forum that I never go to. I never darken its door, and it popped up on my feed this morning, and it was a comment about how South Florida just sucks, and doing a tile roof for $260, and just would you do a job like that, and there were 50 comments on that. Yeah, that just sucks. And there was a couple people going, well, if you're worried about what your competitors are pricing, then you're already losing. And it looked, I think it was like a 28, maybe 3,000, less than 3,000 square foot house. Looked like probably about 10 cents a square foot for that tile roof. And I know roof cleaning is cheaper down there. But then I saw somebody that commented, and it's somebody that I have immense respect for, and somebody that has an extremely large company, larger than probably a lot of people realize, and running a hell of a lot more trucks than people realize, who is in that market. And, he laid out and he actually comes in and watches this sometimes. And he was saying, hey,
that is a good price.
It actually makes sense. And we do jobs like that all the time, but at the same time, we're doing 20 of those jobs a day, and then there were comments of like, well, how are you doing 20 of those a day? Well, because I've got 8 trucks on the road. That's why, and then, I'm sure there were jobs that people thought spray wash was too cheap at, but I'll tell you what, whenever you've got, 8 people on the payroll and you're paying salaries, and you're going to pay that salary whether you have work or not on that day, you tend to get pretty religious on your pricing right there, and you do things where you need to be, and you understand what the market, you understand. Whenever you start paying salaries or wages to people, you really understand exactly your butter zone of where you need to be up there at the plate, every time, just hitting singles.
Just to hit it.
Yes, exactly. Every time you step up to that plate, guess what? You score. Now, every now and then, but with that mindset too, that does
excuse me.
That does not mean you can't take the average, you can't take the errant fastball every now and then and knock that sucker out of the park. It doesn't mean that you can't hit a triple or a ground rule double, and get some extra scoring on there. You don't have to settle for only the singles every time. But if you do hit the singles every time and you keep hitting them, you are going to score.
So, I'm going to go to what Gene is saying. But before I do, hey, we don't ask for it very often, but just as a reminder, if you guys can give us that like, thumbs up, share, all that kind of stuff, that would be great. We'd appreciate it. And let me go to what Gene is saying. Gene is saying, great deal on travel. You just have to attend a 2-hour presentation. This is kind of exactly the point, right? You can have virtually any business model can work if it's worked and it's done correctly. Just like I was using that analogy of that pool company, right? Why is it that these companies have been doing these 2-hour presentation things for the last 500 million years, and they keep doing them? Because they've become successful at it. They have a system in place. They have a sales process in place, and they know they're going to run 50 people through that door to sell to maybe 5, right? Hopefully they can get more than that. Hope, maybe not, kind of a thing. But at the end of the day, they make their money off of those few people that actually walk in the door and take that 2-hour presentation. And I can tell you, a lot of those people walk in with the mindset, I ain't doing nothing, but I'm just going there for the
free vacation. Or I'm here for the $300 3-night, and the free SeaWorld Orlando tickets. That's what I'm here.
And then with Jim Bob on this one, we just got beat on an HOA where we were 175 a door. The competitor was 100. I look at it like he has to work harder for his money than we do. I want to talk about that for a second, because that's not necessarily true. If you think about how things are done, this is where I say you have to look at the different business models and how they work and how they're applied, right? Sometimes, like the $99 guy, he advertises that and to get in the door, and then tries to make a bigger sale. Or if it's a government job, let's say, or it's in, maybe even an HOA where you go in and you come in with a super low price and then you nail them on change orders later on. That happens all the time in this industry and in the construction industry as a whole. So it's not always the case.
Well, but you know what? I love that what Austin said. They flagged your comment sensitive. I got to tell y'all a story about sensitive too. I think you'll all get a kick out of this. Anyway, and what so much of this goes back to is something that Doug and I preach just all the time. Whether you work for 400 oh boy, that's a poignant saying right there. When your buffer zone is threadbare, you're still hanging by a thread. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that ties into what I was about to say, Michael. It doesn't matter if you work for a razor thin margin or a huge margin. If you don't know what that margin is, or you don't know your numbers, then you're just screwed, because you don't know if you're making money or not. If you don't know how much it costs to operate that truck with 1 or 2 people on it every day, then you're literally flying blind. And it could be costing you $1,200 a day to operate it. It could be costing you $500 a day to operate it. But if you don't know it, then you're just losing money at a rapid pace.
I kid you not. This happened. This has been 50 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. Probably not 50 based on my age, but 40 years ago, I believe. It's probably about where it was. We're sitting around talking about stuff. And I remember a guy talking about and saying, oh man, I'm making such great money. And he had the nicest cars. He had all this stuff, man. He was blowing money like left and right. He owned a car dealership and used car dealership. And man, he was just making money and, all this kind of stuff. And then one day he's all, oh man, I can't believe, oh man, he's in real dire straits. And it come to find out, he didn't know what he was making, right? He wasn't paying his taxes. He wasn't nothing. He was just, man, all this money is coming in. I'm selling these cars. I'm doing great. He wasn't operating his business like a business.
That's right.
He was just, hey, you know what? I'm out here. I'm making cash. It's cash under the table, right? I'm selling cards. I'm getting cash and all this kind of stuff. The IRS caught up with him and they're like, nah, you're buying all these cars and you're doing all this stuff. And no. And he ended up getting nailed really bad. And like he had to write a massive check, put a mortgage out on his house, all this different stuff that he had to go through. And then the court stuff that he had to do. I remember that. It was a mess for him. So he would not have been in that situation. He probably would have. He was a pretty good drunkard. But anyhow, he would not have been in that situation had he known his numbers and been taking care of business and paying taxes.
What margin you had to be that. Like I guarantee on that story that I said a minute ago about that guy that runs the large company, I guarantee you that he knows exactly how much it costs to send one of his trucks and 2 guys out there. I mean, we knew that at Spray Wash that a truck could not leave the store unless it was going to bring in at least $700 in a day, because that was what we considered our break-even point for 2 technicians on a truck that was fully insured and their part of the carrying capacity of the spray wash office. Because see, it's to understand, guys, it's not just about the salary of the technicians and it's not just about the cost of the bleach. It's about the part of the liability insurance. It's, how much does your liability insurance cost you every day if you break that down? Something to think about. This is the part about knowing your numbers, where you have to know your numbers in these businesses. It's real scary. So absolutely, low price idea, it can 100% work. And I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a clickbait on this thing, because we're not saying don't be the low cost guy, but if you're the low cost guy, you better understand what your margins are. Now, here's something
else. You better have some really good salesmanship inside you to use that low price to bring in and get some, get you a better piece of the pie by the time you walk out the door.
And Gene said it here. If he drops off one guy in an HOA, I mean, what does that cost him? It's just surface cleaning. You know what? And I know what Gene's saying here, but at the same time, what does it cost Gene? Well, it cost him that portion of that truck and the company. It could technically be costing him a lot if they had other opportunities that they were missing for that. Now, let's say that now Gene's in a little bit different market because he's, below Orlando where the seasons are kind of reversed, and like, the snowbirds are coming down there now, and now it's probably Gene's really busy time. But if you're sitting there in the summer doldrums, whenever, his town is crickets and there's nobody around, maybe you work at a little bit lower price than you do, in January when everybody is down there escaping the snows in Buffalo, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the things that can make it just really tough but you have to understand what that truck is costing you, what it's costing you to run something. Because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know if you're making any money or not.
Yeah. And, when you sit there and you start calculating everything out and you realize, I like what Rusty was saying here about, hardest lesson to learn is to live within your means. Delayed gratification is king. And that's kind of like when I launched Cajun Soft Wash, right? I was so far in the hole, it wasn't even funny. And I'll even go this wasn't where we were kind of supposed to go. But if you guys aren't putting something away and saving and doing stuff, right? I really, really encourage that, because like for me with Cajun Soft Wash, I'll tell you, I paid myself $25 an hour and I worked 40 hours a week. Everybody knows I work way more than 40 hours a week, right? But that's how I paid myself. And then not only that, but when I first started rolling and all that, with taxes, I took out an extra $25, a paycheck and getting paid every week, week or 2 weeks or whatever. And then the next thing you know, I had to up it to 300. The next thing I know, I had to up it to 600. My paycheck was like $13 at the end of the week, right? Because I was taking this extra $600 out a week in taxes or whatever, plus paying my other taxes. My whole point to that is not just living below my means or living within my means. We were literally living paycheck to paycheck, because we were taking that extra money every single month, every single, thing that came in, and we were applying it to the business. We were applying it to trucks. We were applying it to our mortgage, the building. I bought that building and had it paid off within 2 years. I mean, all these kinds of things, right? So invest in yourself, invest in your future, live at or below, I say live below your means, so that you can build up and have something for, when it does become that time to retire, right? And you're not going to get there if you're just running low prices and not knowing your numbers. You can get there running low prices if you're doing that repetitive thing, or you're selling bigger tickets or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to know your numbers, and you should be putting away for the future.
We absolutely 100%, Doug. I totally agree. We never until the very end, and we really kicked up, the teaching some on there. We never had a truck. We never had a truck payment at Spray Wash. We bought our trucks for cash, and we bought typically government auction trucks out there that looked a little bit of rough, that needed a little bit of work to them. We did some work, we put a wrap on it to cover up the body damage on there. I got pretty good at replacing bumpers and stuff like that, and beating stuff, out of beating, dings out of things. Covered up the bad stuff with a wrap on it. And then finally, towards the end, Tanya's like, you need to get yourself a little bit better truck. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right. We did. And even then, at that point, I could have gotten a platinum, whatever I wanted at that point. This is whenever we're rolling $1 million a year, and I bought an XLT because I'm like, you know what, I'm still on a truck every now and then. I may not be pulling a rig with this truck. There might not be a rig in the back of it, but there's something nice. I'm going to be getting into this truck covered in vomit, feces, mud, or something, and I don't really feel like doing that, messing a platinum up like that. So yeah,
and then he quit drinking, and he didn't have to worry about the
exactly. I bought a nice, respectable 2018 XLT, and still nice and it's a great truck. People always look at it, wow, great looking truck. And I'm like, yes, believe it or not, it's just, doesn't say Lariat on it if you look real close. And I'm like, oh crap, it doesn't, but it looks just like it, put a nice set of tires on it and some new rims and it looked great. But yeah, I 100% agree that the delayed reactions are important. Living within your means are important. I still go back to, whenever they had that big brouhaha with the Arkansas guy that was taking all the money for the skids.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember watching a video and there was somebody commenting, furiously on this video that a guy was doing. And the comments are, and I'm probably going to get the numbers wrong, but like, yeah, this dude owes me $140,000.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, $140,000, man, you gave him that much? Well, no, I mean, I gave him $35,000 for a skid. And, and so then we started our company. And so apparently the guy had never even washed a house, but he's like, so we built our website and we got these marketing materials, and I'm waiting on my thing. And, and I needed a good F-250, to pull that truck and or to pull that, fancy rig that I was gotten. So, I paid like $8,000 for that truck, and I don't even, and here this is, and I've got these dye sublimation shirts and I've got, this and that, and I've done all these things, and yeah, I'm in this for $140,000, and I haven't even washed a house yet at this point, and I don't have the equipment to wash a house. And I'm thinking, holy crap! I mean, nobody made you go out and spend that much money, waiting on a rig. I pulled a lot of trailers with some really crappy trucks, in the day, and saved the pennies up to just. I had some trucks and I was literally like, oh God, this really looks awful. I mean, the wrap wasn't just for marketing. The wrap was so I wasn't so embarrassed to drive
so bad. Yeah.
much, And, I remember I used to literally take my spray wash shirts because I loved a white, crisp t-shirt out there, but, I realized how dirty they got dragging hoses, across that belly section with my gut sticking out. And I used to literally boil my shirts on the stove to try to get them clean. I put some bleach and some laundry soap and put them in a soup pot and just boil the freaking things to try to clean up because I didn't really have the money to go out and buy a batch of t-shirts. I mean, I got 5 shirts silk screen, there at the very beginning on there, and I wanted to keep them looking good. So
I went to, I think it was Vistaprint, and I got the cotton shirts, my logo, they're white. And you know how terribly dirty those things get very, very quickly. And I used to keep them all in the truck because they would get so dirty so quickly, but I couldn't afford anything else. And so then that way I would just go swap it out real quick for another one and then go home. And just like you say, man, I'm scrubbing on them things, trying to get them out to make them look nice. And I went through several of those, until I could finally afford to buy, a good, clean sublimation shirt and all that kind of, which, changed all of that for me, if you would. But
absolutely. Well, like Aaron is saying here, Aaron, hope you're doing well, buddy. Good to see you out there. But not advocating for $100 a door, but willing to come down from a 40% mark, to a 40 from a 60 on a big project, especially if you're confident you're going to get more like it, And also think about this. Okay, if you're in a multi-door project, and you're not moving around day to day, hourly.
Absolutely. You can charge less because you don't have to move.
Right.
And the time that it takes to roll up, pack up, and go.
But let's say that you're working for $200 an hour, right? And that's what the rate that you get. But you're actually only, because I see this fallacy all the time with guys in the industry. Yeah, man, I make $300 an hour. Okay, so you made $2,400 today. Well, no, I made $600 today. Well, what do you mean I thought you made $300 an hour. Well, yeah, I mean, I washed a house. It took me 2 hours and I got $600 for it. Okay, well, what did you do with the rest of the day? Well, I didn't do anything, or I passed out flyers or I sent emails. Okay, so you worked for free
the rest of the day.
Is that what you're saying? Because that really isn't how money works, right there.
That's not how it flows.
So if you actually work for 8 hours that day and you made, what's the number I said, $600, you really made, what was it, $75 an hour is what you made, not $300 an hour on there. But same thing on a commercial HOA, on something like that, where you're sitting there working. Yeah, you can afford to probably work less than what you typically are going to do, because you're not running around town. That you make $300 an hour, but you're only really working for 2 or 3 billable hours. But you get into an HOA or a large project, you're actually going to work for 7 billable hours at $200 an hour there, which is $1,400 versus $900 if you only had 3 billable hours at $300 there. So yeah, 100%. I mean, I get it.
That's why it's important to look at the types of jobs too. And when you're doing all this stuff, you're looking at, the low dollar guy, or, the low pricing side of it, where if you're doing something where, just like we're talking about, you've got an HOA and you've got, whether it's 50 doors or 3,000 doors, right? I can change my pricing model, and I can be at a very low cost to the HOA or to the business entity, whatever it is, at that lower price point, because there's so many of them to do. And not only that, but the first 2 or 3 that I do might go a little bit slower. But if they're all the same shape, they're all the same design, they're all this, they're all that, you can get guys flowing ahead of you and doing all the setup and prep, and another set of guys taking down, or you can have one guy soaping, one guy, you can have all this stuff going on that just makes it so you're just banging these and you're making money. And even at that low $75 a door kind of a thing, right? Depending on the number of doors that you have to do. So I think a lot of us have that mindset that we see, oh man, I heard Ray was charging $100 a door, man. That guy is just stupid, right? But we don't know all of the other dynamics that go with it, to where he's actually making really good money on that. Though at the same time, I know that it could have been where, man, did you hear what Ray got? He got $175 a door for that place. How in the hell does he do that, right? Same thing happens. It's all on perceived value. It's on sales presentation. It's about reputation. All of those things matter and mean something.
Mm-hmm. It does. And by the way, speaking of value, perceived value, there's a class here right now. It will eventually be a paid class, but the first half of it is in the academy right now. It's the Understanding Property Managers. I did it live this morning. You can watch the rebroadcast of it. Hurry up and watch that if you have not seen it yet. It's a pretty good class. Actually wrote it, did it at the huge convention in I believe 2018. So and they've done it subsequently a couple of places on there, but got really good reviews on that class whenever we did it. In fact, I think we were asked back in 2019 to do that class again. So great class, and so get it while it's up, because once they start charging money for it, it won't be up.
And Gene is saying, back to HOAs, extras for residents while they're there at discounted prices makes for a great bonus for your crew. Why not? You're already there. And you know what? This is where you're empowering your employees to allow them to make some extra money as well, by adding on services and building that trust and rapport with your own employees, so they're not selling services that you're not getting paid for, where they're only getting paid for. So making sure that you have all of those dynamics in place to make sure that that kind of stuff isn't happening as well. So, there's so much to it. And when you look at the low pricing and the stupidity of low pricing, we're not just talking about, the $99 guy and all that. You can be a $99 guy, make lots of money, but you can also be the $99 guy who can't afford to replace or repair anything.
Right.
You need to know your business model and make sure that the business model itself is profitable. And how do you do that? How do you know, Ray? We just said it, right? You got to know your numbers.
Know your numbers. We have laughed about this when we first said this, at a convention, years ago. But it was like, you talk to these guys, man, I had an absolutely amazing pressure washing business, for years until I blew my hose.
Couldn't afford to replace it.
Couldn't afford to replace that hose, so had to go back, to working my gig at Lowe's or Home Depot.
Not only that, but this goes back into the whole insurance thing, right? Where if you don't have the right insurance, you then can't afford to, afford the lawsuit that comes at you, right? And in order to do that, you have to have the right pricing structure and business model to be able to afford the proper insurance.
Michael just, mentioned up there, I want to get before Gene, business 15 years before we had a new vehicle, had iron-ons for shirts we bought at Walmart. Then, you found coveralls, 100%. What is deducting that beautiful tree? Let's see here. I can't compare your prices to margins. My statement stands. Going down from 40 to 60 per project with strong potential for more work. Yeah, I agree. I'm totally agreeing with you, Aaron. And you're using a margins type thing, and I'm using those numbers on there. But yeah, I 100% agree with
absolutely. And here again, where we look at business models and business structures and how you do things. If Aaron is looking at things on prices or margins or however, right, he's going to be able to determine where he's at and what is actually making money and what's not.
I can tell you what, Aaron knows
your numbers, Aaron.
Aaron knows his numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Aaron knows that he can be at, instead of 60%, he can be at 40% or whatever it is and make money.
Yeah, Aaron 100% knows his numbers. We might calculate it in a cost per job or cost per door. Aaron's going to sit there and look at it as the margin on there, which is fantastic, because it's the same thing as the gig on it. And man, I mean, and the guys that are Aaron, Jim, Bob. I mean, so many guys that are on here, Mitch is out there watching. We've got so many great professionals that truly do get this, what I mean? So much of this is just our, a friendly rambling, that we get out here and do this. And, we hope that there's the hundreds of people that are watching this, or thousands, that wind up on the rebroadcast of watching this, that may not ever comment and maybe, we just hope you understand that this is what some of the Gene O'Neill, I mean, he's, God knows Gene O'Neill knows his HOAs. Right. And you hope that somebody picks up a couple of these little ideas here and says, maybe these guys do know what they're talking about a little bit. I want to point this out too, and I left this on my dang. Oh no, I did bring my book. Sorry, I just wanted to stretch my back out here and sit on the floor for a minute. But it's not just about a write-off for the tree, Jim Bob. There's something else there's something else that a lot of newer guys, maybe with the smaller equipment, don't understand. Because I know that me, like going into some of the forums and seeing this, and other old guys, we've talked about it. The guy's like, well, yeah, this first project took me 3 hours, or this project took me 3 or 4 hours. And we're looking at it going, that's an hour right there. And that's part of it too. The better your equipment, the more you're not using the AAA pump on a Honda GX 240 out there. And having to hand roll that crappy gold hose.
That's a perfect way to say it.
That fights you back with literally every
yow, yow.
Whenever I can literally pull up to a before I used to love watching my guys, because before the house was even taped in a lot of neighborhoods, the first technician was actually out there washing before the house was even fully taped all the way around, because the lead technician, he's pulling his stuff out, or the second technician, he's pulling the stuff out. The lead technician is going around slapping tape on stuff. He goes to the spigot, literally pulls the he walks, from the truck with his tape, his phone, and the end of the hose to the spigot, hooks it up, then starts taping and taking photographs up. That technician number 2 is now pulling out the hoses and fires the machine up and is like, bam, he's spraying right behind the guy that's out there doing the taping.
A well-oiled machine.
They get half the house done. They go back to water. They rinse around. And this is assuming no, property or plant protection. We're not having to put Tyvek out. And then, and it's just knocking these things out. And a lot of that has to do with the equipment that you're using, the familiarity with your equipment, and how well your setup is, so that you're not having to take a machine off a truck and take a machine off of this and that and the other and wheel it around to the backside of the property and this and that,
And Brad, absolutely on this, where Brad's saying we get told all the time how much more we are than the other companies, but they still go with us. Not everyone wants the cheap guy, and those are the customers that we want, meaning they don't want the cheap guy. Absolutely. And that goes back to that whole where, low pricing is stupidity a lot of times, right? And we're the same way. Like, I want to be that higher price because I'm going to give that value and the people understand it. And that's where we're saying where you can have a different pricing model. My pricing model is going to be more expensive because of what I do, what I offer, what I sell. And that's how I prefer to run my business. And I want to be sure that I only want to do one house a day, right? I want each truck to go out and do one, maybe 1.5 houses a day, that kind of thing. But that truck needs to make me my money at the same time. I can do that based on offering an excellent service. If we go out and we do $1,500 and it's for one place, that's what it is. And it's great. I prefer to do that than to go out and try to do 3 places at $500. Just don't want to do that.
100%.
Gino Mew saying landscaping in Florida is a great example. I hear guys saying, I would never cut a yard for less than X. A company goes into a neighborhood and offers a better price. This company now pulls it in and doesn't stop cutting. Not that dumb of a business model if you think about it. Absolutely, because now he's in there and he's doing all the yards. And guess what? Now that everybody else is staying out of that neighborhood because this guy is too cheap, he can actually start raising his rates a little bit more. And this goes back to the same thing with, even though you can give yourself a raise without raising your prices. And you can do that very simply by upgrading your equipment and becoming more efficient, by what Ray was saying, where, you have a process. The guys pull out the hose. He has the tape in his hand, the hose in the hand, and his camera with him. And he's going, and they're doing all this. That's cutting out the time. It's no longer wasting time. They're giving themselves a raise by just doing a better, more proficient job, kind of a thing, or buying better equipment.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, knowing the numbers is also knowing your productivity. How many square feet can you do? How many houses can you do? What's your scheduling like? Are you actually scheduling yourself? Are you scheduling yourself, and I know you worked in kind of a spread out area, somewhat, like me as well in mine, but are you running, from Gonzales over to Baton Rouge, over to this and that? And it always blows my mind how, we would tell people, and the office and it's, Tanya, always giving Tanya, her kudos for being so incredible. But we typically were running at, that 2 to 3 week backlog of customers. Now, by the way, Ms. Johnson, if, we're going to get to you on December 17th. Now, if we sometimes do have cancellations, or we sometimes do have things that we move around, if we can move you up, are you good with that? Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. And so now we look at the calendar and realize, okay, so this truck has only one house way down here on the south side, down towards the coast, which is going to suck up most of their day. So what if we wind up, so in a week, we have another house down on the south side that's going to suck up most of the day. So why don't we put those two together? They can actually be halfway there. We do the south side house. We stop at the south side house. Then we go down to the coast and finish that up. And so it doesn't just take that truck out of circulation for one day on one truck. Now we move those two around and we're able to slide two other houses into that because we freed up one truck out of that mess on there. So be flexible with your scheduling options. Your schedule is such an important thing, especially if you're running them. Well, whether you're running one truck or multiple trucks out there. I had a young man in my office today, and I had a guy come by, and great guy, and we were sitting there BSing, and he said, "Well, my wife got a price to wash my house and the roof, and it was $650, and I'm just wondering if I have a pressure washer. I was just wondering if I could do a little bit cheaper myself." And so I had a young man in there, and he's somebody I'm good friends with. I've actually sold him a business before, and great young man. Love him to death. I've watched his business just explode over the years. And so I started talking to this guy, and I said, "Yeah, you could." And then I found out he's trying to do his roof, and I was like, "You're probably not going to be able to do your roof with your pressure washer. The chances are," I said, I never want to say never, but you probably could downstream it and do it like if you did, because he was telling me, he had knee replacement. He wasn't going to get on a ladder to do this, and it's a 2-story house. I said, "Well, if you buy this X-Jet, and that's going to be $90 for the M5 twist, you're going to need to do your roof about 5 times downstreaming, and then let it, do it, let it rain, rinse off, then do it, let it rain, rinse off." I said, "You probably could get it done." I said, "We're going to need to get a good downstreamer, or we buy the whole X-Jet setup." I said, "You're going to spend $250 on there." "Oh, my price was this." I said, "I got you." And I said, "Or, you could actually," and I went over to my pegboard. It was kind of funny. I was looking at the cards, and I literally picked off Taylor's card, who's standing right there. I said, "You could call this guy. He does a really good job." And he's looking around, and I said, "By the way, that's Taylor from B&T right there." I said, Taylor had, we asked him his address, pulled it up on Google. He's like, it's really not a horrible price, what you got on your thing. So, didn't want to sit there and insult, first off, never talk bad about your competition. But Taylor said he'd be happy to look at it, and instead of Taylor just running out there and saying, he said, "Well, and by the way," he goes, "I'll be up on that side of town." I can't remember if he said tomorrow or the next day. He's like, I've got to go and look at the El Jalisco's up on the north side up there. So I can come by to stop by to look at your house. Will you be home? Will your wife be there, et cetera, et cetera. So even on your estimates, it's so important we used to do that with our estimates, and we'd go and schedule them out, because I couldn't do estimates all over Tallahassee at one time. You just run yourself crazy. So I'm going to do estimates on the north side and the east side, on this day. And then I'm going to do estimates on the south side and the outliers in 2 days. Because you can put just hundreds of miles on your vehicle if you're not careful on doing that, and you're really just wasting a lot of time. So this time management is critical in this business.
Yeah, and going back to this whole thing that we were talking about, your business model, your pricing structure, and can you make money as a low cost company? You certainly can. But it all goes back to knowing your numbers, and we're not dissing on the $99 guy. We're not saying that you need to be the $999 guy. What we're saying is you should have a business model. You should have a business structure. You definitely should know your numbers. All of those things are going to help you flow into a good, profitable business if you're doing things correctly. But I feel like a broken record sometimes when I say that, your numbers are going to help you dictate everything, knowing what those numbers are. And somebody recently posted something about, I guess one of it was, I saw something about phones, right? And then not being able to afford the phones and all of that. These are all things that sometimes you don't even know whether or not you can afford somebody to hire to answer the phones for you. And secondly, you have to look at things and say, well, how many phone calls am I missing? Okay. Out of those phone calls, if I get 4 phone calls, 3 of them are spam. Okay. So I have one legitimate phone call that I miss because I'm tired of all the spam. But that one legitimate phone call that week was worth $1,000, right? So now if you're losing one per week and it's $1,000, that's $4,000 a month that you're missing out on. Maybe that's an exaggeration, right? Maybe it's only 500, so it's still $2,000 a month you're missing out on. Okay, so now if I can take that same calculation and say, how much does that person cost me to be in my office? And then work it back from there. If I'm paying somebody $2,000 a month for that, right? Just they're not doing much, but it's $2,000 a month. Now, can they take and capture that 2,000? But now, can they maybe capture 4,000 or 6,000? So look at the entire business model that you have going on. Low price, high price, answering the phones, all those, it all equates into something that is a much bigger thing than just you in that truck.
I know that whenever, and we always talked about, non-income producing personnel and what is a because a lot of us, I even found myself getting into the mindset of, okay, if it's not a technician, it's not an income producing personnel. But in retrospect, looking back at that, that's not necessarily correct, because if you have an office manager, if you have a receptionist, if you have someone that's actually answering your phone out there and hello, spray wash exterior cleaning, how can I help you? That is actually an income producing person. Very well might be, because they're actually getting people's names and numbers. They have the pleasant phone voice, and they're getting you opportunities to get out there and bid where people are not going to leave the messages on the phone. And I can't, tell you how many, crotchety old bastards would sit there and well, I wanted to talk to somebody about getting my house washed, but I guess I'm not gonna, because y'all are too busy to answer the phone. Click.
I'm sorry. I didn't. Yeah. I did it to you once.
Yeah. But So, they actually, so even non-income producing people can be income producing people for you if you've structured their job, properly. Are they going to be doing the invoicing and stuff as well, when they're not answering the phone? I mean, I think that's a part of your office personnel need to be multitasking.
Multitasking, right?
Very, very important for them to be.
I think we've talked about this in the past, where the last office manager that I hired, one of his things to me during the interview is, I know you see me as a non-income producing person. And I stopped him dead in his tracks. I'm like, dude, you're talking to the wrong guy. I absolutely see you. If you're not making me money, I don't want you here in my office. You have to answer the phones. You have to do what I tell you to do when you answer the phones. I need to know every single time that phone rings how they heard about us. I've got a script. You have to follow that script to the letter so that I get everything I need. And that's what makes me money. So even though you're not out there doing that job, if I don't answer that phone, I can't go out and do the other job. So yes, I absolutely saw the office staff as income producing, even though that's not the way they are typically looked at.
You know what David's saying, another thing too, starts at 300, but his job is to upsell, quote everything on that property that's out there. I can't tell you how many times, and they would say, oh, did you want anything else done? Oh, no, just a house wash. Then, you get out there and you actually look at the jobs. This is one of the reasons that I disagree with the Google, and I'm not going to sit there and say anybody's way of doing anything is wrong, because we can make lots of different things work for us, but how we did it, and it was so very right for us. It's why we did in-person estimates so much of the time. And if it wasn't meeting with the person, we were at least walking around and laying eyes on the property itself, so we could say, you know what, you really could use a roof, or better yet, hey, let's not do the roof. Save this $600 we're going to charge you towards your new roof, but your driveway's a mess, and let us wash your house, right there. And skip down to David's next comment before you hit Gene's. I'll get it. So it'd be amazing to hear a potential customer say, I've never seen this before. Well, we're just letting you know what we saw at your property that can use some TLC. 100%. I totally agree. And I think that's whenever you get out there and you start looking at these guys and start doing extra bidding on things, you'll instead of just like going and doing the Google, estimate out there. And again, Doug, I think it goes, and I want to get back to Gene's thing in just a second, but you and I have talked about this 1,000 times, but there's going to be somebody new on here that has not heard this before. But you feel, you pity the person that comes after you, and
I feel sorry for the person that came before me, and I pity the person that goes after me.
Because you're talking to somebody on the phone, and it's like, well, ABC pressure washing just gave me a quote, online, and I'm just getting quotes out there, or they, gave me a quote over the phone. Well, you know what, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate that. I said, but we don't give quote, and we have to lay eyes on the property. Well, why do you have to do that? Because I've had 2 other people, give me that. First off, now I know that you're shopping. You're shopping for the best price, or you don't understand what we actually do. And I'm going to go into salesperson mode, and I may be wasting 10 minutes of my time by doing my spiel.
But you're perfecting your spiel, which is not wasting your time.
But at the same time, I might not be, because all of a sudden I may educate this customer, and this customer goes, wow, because I've heard this literally verbatim. Wow, I never knew that much went into it, because I'm going to say something like, I don't know what your landscaping package consists of. This Google map does not show me. I can't tell if those are boxwoods or if that's another type of hedge you have over there. If you've got boxwoods, they can be incredibly bleach sensitive. I can't see what condition your gutters are in. I may have to cover this, because if I go out there without the adequate plant protection, I could kill everything on your property. I don't want to do that. I don't know, this Google map picture right here is showing that it was from 2016. I don't know if your house has been repainted with a Sherwin-Williams organic pigment paint on there that could cause an issue with this. And you go down that litany of things. And in fact, Tanya used to always, I used to just crack up whenever Tanya she's like, yeah, this person's already sold. You're an order taker here. Go take this order. Really, all they need is a price, because I've already got them sold on spray wash. Go order taker. Go do this.
And back to that whole point of it, where going out there and, like, let's say, for example, somebody just calls you on the phone. They say, I'm just looking to get my roof clean. Okay, and you quote them the price on just the roof, or maybe you go ahead and throw in the house wash or whatever. Like, if I go to the job and they only want the roof quoted, that's okay. Well, I've got to walk around your house and look at the entire roof. Anyhow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line out everything. I'm going to put in house wash. I'm going to put in roof cleaning. I'm going to put in driveway, all that stuff, because it's how our company rolls. And then at the end of the day, you can pick and choose whatever services you like. And if you only want the roof, you only have to do the roof. And sometimes you get, no, I only want a quote on the roof. That's it. Okay, great. But most of the time I could get people to say, sure, I'll take a quote on everything, right? And then by the time I'm done, I sell everything, and they only wanted the roof. That's another advantage of being out there. And then going back to your point about killing the plants, I used to love that one. I love that one, because, when I would say something about, this is a boxwoods, let's say, and it's very sensitive to bleach, and, we could kill these plants with our chemical. Then it opens up the eyes, and they're like, wait a minute, what? You can kill my plants. Wait, what? Huh?
Nobody else did anything
about
that.
Yeah. One of the things I used to love to say is, oh, yes, ma'am, I can not only kill your plants, I can kill your neighbor's plants. And then I can kill your neighbor's plants, and your neighbor's plants. It's why we have to do things a very specific way. And although that may sound like it's oh my God, why would you do that? I want to open your eyes. I want to open the customer's eyes. And now that their eyes are open and they can see, they can smell the bleach, so to speak, I can sell them on what we do to prevent all that from happening. And the last guy that just said it's a day at the spa for the plants is now known as somebody who's full of crap. That's why I was going out there.
Yeah. So what Gene's saying is, our schedule like that, small jobs hit the schedule. That day usually ends up being a bunch of smalls. Another day maybe one and done day. I can see, it's difficult for someone new to the industry. Too much on the schedule sucks and too little sucks. Very important to keep records of what can be changed on the schedule and what can't. So this is part of the rapport with your customer. If we can move you up, are you good with that? With the day's notice on there.
Excuse me. Sorry, I got the sneezes. Back to on that point, we never schedule a Friday ever. I got to a point where, we're so busy all the time, and I can schedule 7 days a week. I can schedule 9 days a week. I can schedule 14 days a week, kind of a thing. But I got to a point where I said, you know what? We never schedule Fridays anymore. We work every Friday, but I don't schedule them. So I can pick up all of those ones that say, man, I really need this done by X date, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the only way I can do that, Mr. Ray, is I can pop you into our Friday thing. We charge an extra $150 to get that done for you, put you on the rush schedule. So I could actually even pick up more revenue. Plus, if it rained and I got somebody that's already waited, 2 months for us, now it's raining on that day, and I can say, well, I'm going to simply move you to that following Friday, and I can pick them back up on that day. So it made for a happy customer. It made for a happy me. Not scheduling Fridays was probably one of the better things I actually did for my company.
We would go. So Fridays was always our day off, typically speaking, because we did 6-day weeks. And then, of course, some of the guys wanted, 2 days off, every other week. So we would work that into the schedule. We were very accommodating with our guys. Most of the guys wanted the hours, and we were more than happy to pay them the overtime. Office staff is always paying for themselves. Now that you're bigger, one serious missed phone call could be a monster job, and more professional. Having customer service is so important in this trade. Mm-hmm. Agreed, Mitch. Totally agreed. What David said right here, guys, one of the most important questions you could ask right there on every phone call, just how did you hear about us? We were right there, Doug.
And if you follow that up, right, sometimes people say, well, okay, what do we do with that information, right? What do you do when somebody says, you ask, how did you hear about us? And they said, well, I heard about you from David Rivas, right? Okay. There's also another way to twist and turn that, right? Because you're going to ask, who do we thank for the referral?
Right.
You're letting them know we're going to be thanking whoever it is that gave the referral to you, to come to us, which means the same thing for them. When they give the referral, they get a thank you from you, right? Mm-hmm. So set that mindset already up so that people know that this is what's happening. This guy's business is based on referrals. And that's the best type of business. That's if you tell me, so think about this. How many of you, when you go to do business with a company you haven't done business with before, you jump onto Google and you type in the name, you see, and you read the reviews, right? You want to see that they've got business, that they've got good reviews and all that. It's happening more and more. And so use that to your advantage. How did you hear about us? So I can thank whoever gave the referral. You don't have to say it like that. You can say, how did you hear about us? And they say, Doug Gore told me about you. Oh, great. Can't wait to give him a call and thank him for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. I see you on Facebook. I see you. I follow you on Facebook. We've got mutual friends in common. We've got, this or that or the other. And I mean, there's so many different, places that business could. You searched, you popped up number one in Tallahassee, or, I heard about you. I couldn't find your website, but I heard about you and they gave me your number. Okay, well, maybe I need to do something to make my website, appear a little bit more out there. But so important. If you don't ask where your business is coming from, then you don't know where your business is coming from. And if you've got, maybe you need to put more money behind the place that's bringing you the money. It's, I saw your Bandit sign on a telephone pole.
Ray, you remember when you put like $10,000 into advertising and all those toothbrushes? How did that work out for you? I remember every month you said, I put another 1,000 into toothbrushes, another 1,000 into toothbrushes, but had no idea that the toothbrushes weren't working, right? Yeah, I see that so many times where guys say, oh yeah, man, I'm putting all this money into advertising, but it's not working, right? And I've tried 5 different venues. I tried them all one time, which doesn't work either, right? So you again, this is where knowing your numbers, tracking your stuff, and
Every-
making sure you're not running at that stupid, ridiculous low price, that you're not making any money, and being able to afford advertising and knowing where that advertising is and knowing how to answer
You're not asking
all of these parts come in to make up that company.
literally, if you're not asking that question, you do not know where, and a lot of times kids, I see you everywhere, and we got that a lot because in the mornings, 3 to 4 spray wash logoed trucks would pull out on Weems Road, and then head down Highway 90. We got a lot of calls first thing in the morning when they saw literally our fleet of trucks leaving. Tended to get a lot of calls on that, but man, you've just got to ask these questions. John Hall posted about dog crap being everywhere. He said he had to reschedule. I says we charge for this. This is why we go in-person quotes, and our verbiage on all of our quotes we have there. Please make sure there is a clean path 15 foot off of house. If we have to pick up your dog crap, I upcharge on there.
Yeah. And they're going to pay that upcharge fee because they don't want to pick up the dog crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
That even that goes into, if you've got stuff on the patio and the porch and all that. And I know there's arguments both ways, right? Some guys say we charge for that. Some guys say we make them move it. I think it's not a smart business thing to make the customer move stuff. They're not working for me. And I'm charging them a premium because I'm moving their stuff, right? And if they want to say, well, I want to save some money and I'll move it myself, I say, okay, great. And it's in writing. Here it is. If you don't move it back X number of feet from the house, we're still going to move it and still going to charge you, because if you move it just off of the patio, we're still going to end up destroying. We still got to move it way off by the fence over there. Once they realize and all that, they're happy to pay us the extra money to move it for them.
Mm-hmm. Richie, it's a mighty wind to kill your neighbor's plants. I tell you what, I actually had a job I was supposed to start last week. I'm subbing, I still do some sub work for my old company, and I'm doing a water tower. We moved it to Wednesday not tomorrow, the next day. We moved it to Wednesday because I'm at a water tower. I'm 165 foot up in a crane, and I've been looking at the weather. And, last week we had a front coming in. We had some wind on here, scheduled at 10 to 15s. And I'm like, guys, I am not spraying. I'm backing up to a townhouse neighborhood. I don't want to be responsible for that. And so sorry, but we will not spray at more than an 8 to 9 mile an hour wind, whenever we're spraying at heights like that. It's just does not make sense,
saying,
do we hit at the same time? I guess
we hit at the same time. It happens a lot, right? So Michael J says, I got tired of paying people to make my videos. I make my own silly ones, and they work way better than I figured. What have you got to lose? I'm going to tell you what, Michael, I think that's very smart, right? Yep. So yes, a good professional video can be extremely helpful, but I also think those one-on-one, me and you,
crap works really well.
My website, my original website, I had myself with a video, and before the goatee, just the mustache and all that, and my white cotton shirt. And I put out a video, and it was just me talking to you about what I do, why I do it, the way I do it, and all that kind of stuff. And that video got a lot of views and got me a lot of business because people could really connect with me from that personalized video, if you would, right?
Right.
And then later on, I actually released a bloopers version that was very well. It was great for the company.
Mitch Wood, Power Wash Bros. Mitch he was great with his videos that he did out there. I mean,
Mitch does the thumbs up.
Yep.
And he gets a lot of his customers to give him a picture doing a thumbs up. That's his trade.
Those great cheesy little videos where he's interviewing his customers and stuff, and he does such an amazing job with it. And
yep.
Boy, I mean, it's just fantastic, and how can you not love it whenever you've got a personal referral from somebody talking about how much they love the service and all. I mean, guys, social media, people really, do the social media. Gene, and I was the same way. I mean, I've, the more successful you get, sometimes the less, I mean, I don't answer the phone as much as I do at power wash stores. I should, I'm real guilty of that. But whenever I'm with a customer, I don't answer the phone whenever I'm with that customer and someone's calling in, and I get fussed at a lot. Well, God, all right, I've been calling all morning. Sorry, I've had a line of customers all day. One person leaves, another one comes in. And I always hate sitting there going, look, let me answer this. Even though I know you've spent your time and gas to come in here and talk to me, let me answer this phone, that somebody, sitting here calling in. So I get kind of, and it's like, well, leave me a message. And it's amazing how many people don't leave messages.
Well, and to Gene's point here, okay, Gene's saying, I'll admit I'm guilty for not answering the phones as much as I should anymore. I try to push them to the web, yet our Google searches have more searches for our name than the service. So, I don't agree with that business model, Gene. You know that already. But what I do agree with right here is that it's just like you're saying. They're not Googling pressure washing, soft washing, roof cleaning. They're Googling Gene because they already know you. You don't necessarily need to go out there. And it might even be a job you've already done before. You have no real need from that, or you have already.
That's the rest of his comment too. Quote a lot of roofs without seeing. Mm-hmm. But Gene is a roof specialist, and Gene deals with a lot of HOAs with the same house over and over and over again in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were neighborhoods where, I know that there's literally 5 different models of homes. There might be 2,000 houses in the neighborhood. There's 5 different houses. It's just they're different colors, or the garage might be on the left or it might be on the right, depending on that. So, hey, I get it. No, I do the same thing. And if it didn't have to go, a lot of times they'd be and I could literally on that phone call, I did the Johnson's house over at 3221 Mossy Creek, which I know they're right down the road from you. Oh my God, yeah, their house looks so good. I don't need to go out because I'm very, very familiar with the neighborhood. I've literally done, probably 30% of the houses, on unit 4 of Southwood. John Hall, she didn't want to pay.
Well, Michael, yeah, it can be difficult to track your marketing, but there are so many different ways to do it. And again, just by asking, right? Or if you're sending out a mailer, right? You can get these 800 numbers, or you can get these different local numbers and all that where they're calling that specific number, and that when that particular number is coming through, that is from that particular piece of marketing. There are so many different ways to do that, to keep track of, and that's where a good office person really pays off too.
Exactly. They can work it into the conversation so naturally out there where, I'm like an awkward turtle turned upside down and flail. Where did you hear from?
And Jim Bob, I want to hit Jim's thing real quick just before you move on. Jim says you should be using a drone. And it's one of them things, no shameless plug, but if you're interested in buying a drone, give me a call. And yeah, move on.
What do you know about drones? What do you know?
Yeah. Where are we getting with that? Yeah.
Seriously. Anyhow, about it. You're
Which
teaching.
One did you click on? You clicked on this one, and I took it away. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I had the weather golf ball in Melbourne today rescheduled due to wind. Yeah, absolutely. Wind can just be your killer. One of my best commercial contracts asked me last night to buy Christmas gifts cards from her business because she's in a competition with other stores in her company. Here's a no-brainer. You help her, thank her for the tons of business she's thrown your way, and now you've got Christmas gifts for your top customers. 100%.
One of the things I'll say about that, though, and this is no slight at all by any means, Michael, is she shouldn't have to ask you. Again, you may not have known. That's what I'm saying. All this depends, right? But if I get a customer that comes up and I see that they're doing something like that, I'm already in buying. Right. If I see their kids doing it, if I see whatever that is, I'm already on it. So not pushing at you, but man, if those things pop up, you just do them, right? Because they're going to see that, they're going to know that. You don't even have to say anything. Hey, I'll take 10 of those cards. They'll make great gifts for me to give away to my customers. I
might say he didn't know, but I mean, and I'll refute you on one thing there. But honestly, if unless your kid's fundraiser is selling whiskey, I'm really not that interested. All in all, keep your chocolate bars. But no, and seriously though, how many times, whenever you're just having your casual conversation with your customers, how many times do you ask them, well, where do you work at? I mean, do you work out? And Tanya was really good about this. I mean, I always heard her say, do you work outside the home? Whenever she was obviously talking, to a female, not, oh, do you have a job or do you work anywhere? Don't, because hey, face it, being a mom is a lot of work. And so, do you work outside of the home? So you're not demeaning anybody for, oh, you don't have a job, and you're acknowledging that being a homemaker is actually a lot of damn work out there. So, she was fantastic about that. But, do you ever sit there and say, you get your customer's email address, and if it's, I've got a Gmail address, but I'm going to give you, my work address or whatever. And you realize that their email address is leoncountyschools.edu. Do you ever sit there and go, oh, wow, do you work for Leon County Schools? Well, duh. I mean, that's what their email address is. Oh, what do you do there? Oh, well, I'm in the maintenance department.
I hire the people that wash buildings.
Is it, Dillard's? Yeah, exactly. But you never actually ask those probing questions and find that out. Is their email address at dillards.com? Well, yeah, I'm the regional manager for Dillard's out there. Really? You're the regional manager for Dillard's. How could that wind up benefiting your company? Yep. Or let's say it's a small caterer or somebody that has a small business, in Tallahassee, and they do that. Why wouldn't you go and buy Christmas gifts from one of your customers, like Michael just did out there? I mean,
and how he's just saying,
what an amazing relationship builder,
Hey, and just as a reminder here, if we haven't put your comment up on the board and we're over 100 or hour and 16 minutes in and all that kind of fun stuff, but if we haven't put your comment up on the board, we don't see all of the comments. I'm saying that too because I know I just saw a deal come across on my phone that's from Landon, and Landon's saying, I'm there. Hey, Ray, stay on topic. Not that we ever go off topic, right?
Wow.
But my point, yeah, like Landon, you got to love him, right? So my point is we don't see all of the comments. I
haven't seen that comment yet from him. So
exactly. So that's the point I like to bring up every now and then, that if we're not showing your comment, it's because we don't see them all at the same time.
Exactly.
So we apologize.
We've got this thing broadcast in like 6 places, and probably about 3 of them are putting, the comment
on the screen. Yeah.
So we're not being rude to you, and we're not trying to show you love, but
yep, because we love all y'all, right? Well, most of you.
Well, man, we have gone down the marketing rabbit hole again, haven't we, Doug?
Yep. I think that might have been where Landon's comment comes from, but it all tied back together, and it's all good, and it's what's out there. So
again, I don't care. Let's go back to the stupid pricing. I don't care if you're the stupid pricing guy, if you're the high pricing guy, whatever it is. Let's get back to knowing the numbers, and we could even sit there and say that knowing where your business comes from is part of knowing the numbers out there, Doug.
And knowing if you have a stupid low price.
Yeah, and not saying that you got to be high. The stupid low price model works if you know your numbers out there, because it could be to the point to where the stupid low price with a really high overhead does not work, and stupid low price with really bad, crappy equipment may not work. And and stupid low price with just you trying to go out there and support your family and make the new truck payment that you bought, the $80,000 F-250 that you needed out there may not work, and you're just losing money. So maybe you need to get it. And that's honestly what we're starting to see here, with my rant that I did last Thursday or Friday, whenever I just kind of, went into the ray of old, saying that this industry is becoming a horrible dumpster fire in a lot of ways. People are, as money gets tighter, as more and more people get into this industry, unfortunately, it's a natural tendency of people to want to compete on price. Well, I'm not getting business where I'm making $100 an hour. I'm not getting business making $150 an hour. So let me go down to $125 an hour. Ooh, that's not working. Let me go down to $100 an hour. That's not working. Let me go down to $75 an hour. And it becomes a race to the bottom. Well, obviously I need to stick up more bandit signs out there.
Mhm.
That's what's wrong. I don't
That's
have
what I
any
need to do.
bandit signs out there. No, you have no idea where your business is coming from to start with. It's not from the bandit signs. It's from, Betty June, who loves you to death, and she's posted about you on her Facebook page to her network of people, but you never ask where you're getting this business from. Maybe you need to go send Betty June a homemade cake and get her one of those gift cards that you bought from somebody.
Let me answer this question before we hop off. And Michael's saying, I'm always raising my prices because I can, not based on the science. Maybe that's not so stupid. No, it's absolutely not stupid. I mean, you're raising your prices because you can. That's a good thing, right? You don't necessarily have to have the so-called science, but I still think you need to know your numbers. You should know your numbers. But if you can think about it this way, I guess, if you can raise your prices, maybe they were low to begin with, maybe they weren't, maybe you're the highest in the market, but you can still bear more because you're the best in the market. If you can raise your prices, I say do it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, and if you've not raised your prices, in a lot of ways, I mean, everything else has gone up. You're paying more for bleach now. I would almost bet you're paying more for bleach today than you were a year and a half ago. You're paying more for gas, God knows, than you were 3 years ago. Yeah. Been there and had to stop. I agree, because I rarely ask, how did you hear about us?
I'm not sure what you're saying there, John. Been there and had to stop. I agree, because I rarely ask, how did you hear about us? I don't know what you mean by that.
It's one of those things. And now I will say this about being, the high price service. We've said many times on here, and again, we really need to wrap up. Thank you guys that have stuck around. But there's a place for everybody's in the market. There is Golden Corral. There's Ruth's Chris. We could even do Golden Corral and Ruth's Chris. At Golden Corral, I can go in and eat everything I want for, $14.95, I think was the last time I went. I can go to Ruth's Chris and I'm going to spend $200 to $200 a person, to eat there. Now, the thing, whenever I leave Golden Corral, I'm like, I don't necessarily feel great. I'm not saying anything's wrong with the food whatsoever. I've probably overindulged on the chocolate fondue bar. I found a lot of things that were quite palatable. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh my God, that was the best steak I've ever had. Now, I spend, $15 here. I spend $200 at the Ruth's Chris, and I'm literally looking forward to the next time that I can afford to take my wife out to Ruth's Chris, because it was an amazing meal, and the guy came by through
experience.
The waiter came by with a little crumb catcher, and scraped off the tablecloth, between each course on there, and but it was an experience on there. There's a place for everything. There's Hyundai, there's Mercedes. I mean, everybody has a place in the market, and they understand, that as well too. What happens is, now whenever you become the highest guy in the market and you start not offering the penultimate service as well, because that needs to go along with being the highest guy in the market, is offering literally the best service as well too.
Absolutely.
And then if you're going to be the value guy and you're going to spend as much time as the high service guy on those houses, then you're probably also a recipe for losing money.
So last question here before we hop off. Facebook user says, when raising prices, is it a big jump or do you do it consistently over a period of time? I say you do little increments. You should be looking at your pricing structure every 6 months to a year. You
Maybe
should
so.
be having and look, the way I would do it, let's just for argument's sake, say I'm at 10 cents a square foot on something. The next week, I'm going to charge 11 cents. If I'm still selling all my jobs, I might raise it to 12 and then 13 and then 14 to see where I start tapering off until my sales get to somewhere between that 40 and 60% range. If I'm selling less than 40, typically my price is too high. If I'm selling more than 60, typically my price is too low. So you raise just little short increments until you find that spot where you're hitting that 40 to 60 range, and then you're gold from there.
Another part of knowing your numbers. What is your close ratio out there? I mean, guys, you need to know your numbers about everything in this business. How much, what are you closing 10% of your deals? Are you closing 90% of your deals?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so it is closing in on 9:30. We've been 1 hour 25 minutes on here. You ready to?
We appreciate y'all very much.
We could keep talking. We could talk about this all night, but we appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate your comments. You guys drive this show, and we start at one place, we wind up at something else, and we
most of the time
back around. Thank y'all, and hey, happy holidays and Merry Christmas and all that great stuff.
Merry Christmas, definitely.
It gets weird this time of the year. We don't know if something's going to happen. If we're not on next week, we might be. Who knows? But if we're not, Merry Christmas if we don't see you.
Peace, y'all.
All right, y'all have a good night.